Hello, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to show you all the steps to create in the fastest way possible a realistic scene like this one. And let's start with an overview of what's in my scene. We have a room, which is basically made by a number of planes, nothing special here. We have few geometries, which I'm going to show you how to get this geometry for free, a camera, and a couple of lights, 1 and 2. We start with the default cube. We move it upwards with a snap, so it lays on the grid. I'm going to remove this face because I want to be able to see inside the box. And I'm going to now move the origin of the box to the bottom of it. So in Tool, I said Origin, Transform. I pick the Z axis and then move it down with the snap. Let's scale the room. Scale it down to around, let's say, 3 meters. And I also want to scale the walls to have 8 meters each wall. So press S, Shift Z, and then I scale it until I reach 8 meters. Okay, it's this one. You can also just type it here. Next thing, I'm going to separate the floor from the walls because I want to have more control over it. And now I have here 2 different objects. I'm gonna rename them. Floor, and let's call it room. Next thing, I want to have here some kind of frame on the wall. I don't know the name. Let's do a loop cut. Okay, around so. I'm going to select the faces. I'm gonna extrude along normals. And I just need a little bit there, not too much. Again, now I want this to be a single object, so actually I'm going to select these. So these are walls. I'm going to select this, separate selection. This is our ceiling. And these are walls frame. And we have the first part of our model. Next thing you want to do is enable one add-on if you don't have it already. If you go in the preferences, you want to search for BlenderKit and click here. If you don't have it enabled, you want to enable it. You will have a new menu here that enables you to import a number of material and objects. But what is BlenderKit? It's a collection of models, brushes, and material for Blender. Many of them are free. Of course, they have a subscription program where you pay and you have full access to their library. You also can upload your own model to the system, so you have them always available. And you also can sell your model if you want. The first thing, I'm gonna use BlenderKit to create some quick material. Once you click on BlenderKit, you click on material here, and you start with, I would say plaster, because I want some plaster for my walls. And you see here that you have a number of different material appearing already. Drag and drop on your model. It loads, and then here you have the material. Of course, you may want to scale the texture size if this is too big, for example. In that case, I would select the object. Let's go in the UV editor. I will select my UV and I will just scale them all together. And now you can see you have a much finer grain. I've seen also something for the ceiling that was more interesting, this one. And once that's downloaded, you can do the same thing. You select here and you scale it. Then I want something wooden for this frame. So I will search for wood. Let's see what we got. And something dark, this. And I'm happy with the texture here. And then some tiles for the floor. These ones. The texturing is too big. I'm gonna select the object, UV editor, and I'm gonna scale until I have my tiles in a good dimension. And this is our room setup. Next step, it's adding some of the geometry, so the free geometry from BlenderKit. You want to click on models, and we have like 3000 models. You want to click on free only because we are on a free account. If you create a login, you are able to upload your own model, eventually reuse them directly from the online library. So it's very useful if you have multiple projects to download your own model that you want to reuse instead of keeping them on your computer. Also, if some model is very good, you may try to sell it and make some money out of it. You can browse BlenderKit using the category, of course. So here there are categories, and you can go in subcategories as well, or just type what you're searching for. The main object, it was a collection of a sofa, a coffee table, and some chairs, which I found, I guess, searching for table. It was a full set, but you, of course, can compose your scene with so many different combinations. This was basically ready, so just click on it. And it's now loading, and here it is. It's very fast. I'll just put it back where it was, roughly in this position, not outside the room. Actually, you can add more stuff very easily. So if you go with like bookcase, for example, I didn't have a bookcase in my scene, but let's see if we have any bookcase here. Yeah. For example, I can add the bookcase here. And I realized that probably my ceiling 3 meters, it's a bit too high. So I want to select the ceiling and just bring it down a little bit. We have too many bookcases. I don't want this to be inside the room. It's perfect. You can of course scale it a little bit to make it better. Next thing, I'm gonna add the door. You can add the door you prefer. I think I had this, but this time we go with something slightly different. Let's go with this door. I'll rotate the door. Maybe. Yeah. I'm gonna bring it on the back wall. If you want, of course, you can do a cut in the wall so the door will go inside, but for this tutorial I think we're good this way. Then we add a plant. Let's go with this. And I'm gonna increase the size of this plant. It's not a problem if you see this black border here. In some object you will see this. It's just the alpha channel is not showing in Eevee, but we are gonna render with cycles in this case at the end. So I'm gonna import also another plant like this one that I already used, so you can see the difference. This one basically has the geometry has been modeled, so all the leaves have been modeled, while these other ones are just image with an alpha channel. Different ways to create the same effects. And let's put this plant blur, it's a bit too big, let's put it there. Or maybe we can put this where it was, put this here, and let's put this where it was. It's more similar to the final render. We want a lamp. the most common lamp in the world, which is this one. And put it here in the corner. And I want another one. In this corner here. Coffee table. I guess I had this. This time we can go with something different. Now, did you notice that right now I thought I had this object selected, but instead I had selected the floor and I was moving the floor instead of the object. One way to solve this problem is actually to lock the selection of one object. You want to enable click in the filter, and let's click here. I want to see the floor, okay? Which one is to see in the viewport, but I don't want to select it. So now I cannot select the floor anymore. So it's a good thing because the floor is already in the position. Same thing for my walls frame, the ceiling, the door can stay where it is already. The lamps, this way, even if I click here, I cannot select anything but this object, which I'm gonna unclick. And now the coffee table, I can move the coffee table around. I also want it a bit bigger. I think it should reach this level. I want to show you also this, the disabling render. You may have an object that you don't want to be rendered. For example, let's say that I want the coffee table here for some reason and I don't want to be rendered. I can click this. Even if it's here in the final render, this won't show up. In the other way, you can hide an object because it's in the way while you are working in the scene, but you still want that to be rendered. Then you want to click on this. So it will be hidden from the viewport, but still visible in the render. And we're gonna put something on the coffee table. We had a plant last time, probably it's a bit smaller. Let's put another plant of some kind. It was this one. Let's put the same one. Is it too small? Yeah, let's make it bigger. I want to quickly show that you cannot edit much this model until you import the models. You have to click on bring to scene and you see that this icon will become something different. If I click bring to scene, now I have an editable mesh. Until I click on bring to scene, the object is just an instance of the online version. So you cannot edit geometry, you cannot edit the material. Right now I changed the type from being an online model to a local model, and now I can change the material too. So if I don't like the vase, for example, let's go in the shader editor here. But let's say that I want a plain red, for example, vase. Create a new shader. We'll replace it and go with a red. And I want this to be completely shiny or almost completely shiny. And we have just added something, a different touch to the scene. Same thing you can do for your sofa set. So living room set, it's here. I cannot select it, so I need to re-enable, select model, bring to scene. It will be imported now. I have an editable geometry. Let me click here to hide this because I don't need them anymore. And then if I click on living room set, I have to track what's inside the set. And I have a number of things. This vase, which is very similar to this one actually, I can move it. And I have the sofa, and I find in the sofa this material called fabric blue. And let's change this blue to a red. And now you may argue that the carpet color doesn't match anymore. So let's go and select the carpet. It's here somewhere. And the carpet is using a texture. Okay, let's use the hue and increase the factor. And I must say that it doesn't look any good. But I'm just showing you what you can do with all of these settings and objects. I also had a picture. Let's go with a frame on the wall, and let's pick up one. Let's go with this one. Rotate. And then we move to that wall. If you want to change the picture, you need to import this object in the scene, change the content of this frame. You can change the shape of this frame, for example, and then changing the picture. Otherwise, the object will stay as it's in the library. And we're done with BlenderKit. We can put probably some book here. Let's do it. And so on. And you can populate your library with whatever you want. We have done with BlenderKit. We're not going to use BlenderKit anymore. So I'm going to hide the bar. And the next step is importing a human in the scene. And the reason why I wanted a human was originally just to get the scale of the scene, but then I got an idea and I went on creating stuff. I used this website called Xoio or Xoio, which is a German architecture agency, and they share many things: tutorial, technique, models, some texture too, cut out people for architecture. And I found that they have also Scan Human, and they have this set which I downloaded. They are very low poly figure that are usually used in the background, so they are not the main character of your work. But I needed someone. I tried with this guy reading a newspaper. It didn't work very well. You can download it here for free anyway. And then I went with this other guy. Once imported the object, you will find a number of different geometry. Just select the geometry you want and separate. I must select the geometry you want, press P and separate selection. Then you will have the only geometry you need. The geometry that comes for free was this. I slightly edited the face texture. It's low resolution, but it's okay. It's gonna be tiny in our render, so it's fine. As you can see, there's something like it was a phone in a sense, but the scan didn't reproduce it. So I added actually a phone. This phone, it's a very simple object. I'm gonna show you. There's not much in the geometry. The material, there's an image that it's projected on this face here, and the face has an emission node. And the reason is because I wanted the phone to project some light in the face of the subject. I selected the phone, I select the guy, and I also made it as a single geometry because I'm gonna move them all together. So copy from wherever you are and paste it. I have different scene. In a scene I have my import, in a scene I have some geometry created, and in another scene I have the final render. So let's put it in position. It's slightly bigger than it should be, and it's okay like that. I think it works very well in this scene. Apart from that, we need to create two spotlights that goes in the lamps. The lamps have already a point light inside that will basically create this translucency in the lampshade, but I want also some cone lights to be stronger on the corner of the ceiling because it looks better. So I'm gonna hide the ceiling so I can see the scene from above much better. Gonna create quickly two spotlights. They need to point up, so I rotate them. And I want the lights to have completely smooth transition between the dark and the light. It's gonna be visible in the final render only. And I want the cone to be as wide as possible, or let's say wide enough. And now I can go from top view and I can move my light. One here and copy, and the other one here. I select them both, but they're very low, so I'll bring them upwards. Okay, now I can see in the scene already they're working. I can reduce the HDRI environment so I can see how the lights are working. Okay, I like them. This is just a preview environment scene, so this really won't show up in your final render unless you want to. Next step is creating a camera, and I want the camera to be roughly oriented where I'm looking at now. Let's re-enable the ceiling. So with the camera selected, I go to view, align active camera to view, and now this is what the camera see. The difference between what I was seeing is the fact that the camera, it's probably 50 millimeters, the default camera, while my scene, the viewport, it's in a 35 millimeter. Actually, we can go a bit wider, I guess. 25 millimeter, it's better for this scene. Also, we like the rotation to be precise. So we are perpendicular to the front wall. And then from here, we can move the camera in a different way. You can move it using these number sliders, or you can click on lock camera to view. And now I can just move the camera as I wish. But as I said, I don't want to change the rotation at all. So what I can do is actually lock the rotation, and now I can move it around without altering the orientation of the camera. And we're almost done. Let's hide some stuff that we don't need, like this overlay. And let's set up cycles. If we go on Eevee, normally Eevee doesn't have much. There's some ambient light that we really don't need. We can create a new background, for example. You can see this is total dark in Eevee. Or you can have a color, or you can have an environment map, so another HDRI. We don't need it because we're not going to use Eevee for now. You can have an HDRI also if you're using cycles, but we want to use just those lights in the scene. So I'm going to remove the world. I'm going to change the render to cycles, not on the fly. Let's do it here. Select the GPU if you have a GPU that can render in real time. The sampling in the viewport 64, it's a lot. Probably I don't need 64, but it's okay to see some good result. Flag adaptive sampling, and also the denoising. I use optics because my graphic card is an RTX and support optics, but you can use open image denoise and it will work as good with any graphic card. Probably a bit slower, but the quality, it's actually very similar to the optics denoiser. So once we're here, now we can click on this and wait a second for the first render. And now this is our final scene. As you can see, there is some light coming from the phone and is lighting his face. I want to show you what's happening if I remove the light, both the spotlight that I added for the ceiling, and if I remove also the lamp, you have only the light coming from the phone. This light normally doesn't show like this in Eevee, but in Cycle it works very well. In fact, if I move around the scene, you can see the shadow of the light shining to the character there. And you can change this. Of course, you can have it less strong, or you can have it a different color, for example. You can even have a movie. If you have like a video here and then you are rendering an animation, you will see the color changing. Or I can add, instead of an image, an RGB node and set it to directly a color. If you like this tutorial, please leave a comment below, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. If you dislike this tutorial, please hit the dislike button twice, and I hope to see you soon next time. Ciao!